Welcome back, Stitch Witches. I am sorry this 2 months video is quite late. I wasn't sure if we would continue the book series that we have started or not, and I kind of wanted to wait on that to be able to make one video with all the specifics in it. I'm sorry for that. I will promise you that we have already picked the projects for the next 3 projects. So that is the first half of the next year. So you will get all those informations sooner. But today I will tell you what we're working on in November and December. And also what we will be reading. If we find out together that because I was this late with it, we need more time for the project, that is absolutely fine and we can continue somewhere in January. For the book, we have decided that we will continue with the Vampire Knitting Club series. Most of us enjoyed it. 70% voted to continue with the series. However, we have decided that we're going to read 2 books because it is bi-monthly and, you know, they're very short. So we felt like we could do 2 books in a month, even if you only want to read them just before the live show. So in December, we will have the live show for book 2 as well as book 3. It will be in one live show. We will try to discuss it book by book. What tends to happen if you're starting a large series like this, that, you know, people get less and less interested. So not as many people read it halfway anymore. So we will keep voting every single live show, and if over half wants to continue with the series, we will. At the point that only half or less than that wants to continue the series, we will choose another book, and the rest of us that wants to continue the Vampire Knitting book can just talk about those on the Discord. So for now, the foreseeable live shows, we will be talking about the Vampire Knitting book club because we really enjoyed it. Project wise, these 2 months we're doing hooded scarves. A lot of you wanted a scarf. We're really talking about wanting to make a scarf. So I give 2 options in the Discord, a lacy shawl or a hooded scarf, and you all chose the hooded scarf. So I've picked a knitted as well as a crochet version. I will be making the crochet version because that is a pattern I've had my eyes on for a while now. For both the crochet and the knitted pattern are available for free. The crochet pattern is also able to purchase if you do not want to read it on a blog with ads on it. For the knitting pattern, we have chosen the white hooded scarf by Rootsy. The link is obviously down below where you can get the pattern on which website. It is a free pattern. For both patterns, Aran weight yarn is used, which is also described as a group 4 yarns. However, it is a scarf, so I feel like you do not have to be very tight about this yarn. The pattern recommends that you use Lion Brand Heartland. Actually, both of these scarves recommend Lion Brand. But that is only available in the US. So I personally had a sweater quantity of Drops Charisma in my closet. And this one is too itchy for me to be a sweater. But I thought it would make a great scarf. So I will be using this. I just made a gauge swatch that we will talk a bit more about later. And it looks like it will work. Again, I don't mind if my scarf is just a bit tinier or a bit bigger. But if you do mind, I am going to learn you how to gauge swatch, how to read your gauge swatch, so that you can make sure that it is the exact size as the pattern stated it would be. Drops Charisma says to use a 4mm needle or hook. Hooks usually needs to be a little bit bigger. I did it with a 5.5 for the crochet scarf. That's what they asked for. So I think this will definitely work. And Drops is one of the cheaper yarns if you're in Europe. So that is another option for you. But I think any yarn that says you need needle 5 or 6 or even 4 can work. You will need 700 yards, which is 600 something meters. The knitting pattern is asking for a 6mm knitting needle. If you decide to make this on a cable needle, I feel like this is the length of cable which would be appropriate, which I think this one is the 40cm one, but could also be the 60 one. And the knitted pattern is a tiny bit different than the crochet version, whereas the knitting pattern starts with a scarf part, then makes the hood, and then ends on the scarf part again. If you want them to be exactly the same and you like the crochet one that we talk about later more, you can just either start with a scarf part and make that longer, and then do the hood, and then not do another scarf part, or do the hood and then do the scarf part. Since we are doing increases and decreases for the hood, it might be helpful for you to have a stitch marker. If you're knitting, you can use the stitch markers that only have the ring in it. That would work. But you can also use the ones with a clasp that you can open and close. Knitting is easy that way. You can basically use any stitch marker. Since this is a project that you probably won't finish in a day, it might be helpful for you to use needle stoppers. You have them in all cutesy variants and non-cutesy ones. But this is basically a silicone bead that you put on the end of your needle. It's just on the needle tips. And that makes sure that when you lay your work down, or your cat goes chasing with your work, or you put it in your bag to move with you, your scarf will not slide off your needles. So that's what they're for. We didn't need them in the project that you can finish in like 20 minutes, but you will probably need them, or I really like to use them in projects that I do not finish in a day. The knitting pattern, the knit stitch for this scarf we used is rib stitch, which is the exact same as for the hair tie. So if you've done the hair tie with the increases, the decreases, and the rib stitch, you don't need any new stitches for this scarf. For the crochet version, we went with the Wondrous hooded scarf pattern by Winding Road Crochet. They used the double crochet stitch, which we have not used yet, and they ask for a 5.5mm hook. They also ask for Aran weight yarn, and they recommend Red Heart with Love, the solids. As usual, this pattern is also linked down below, both the Ravelry page as well as the blog where you can get it for free. So you can prefer which option you would like to get your hands on. I swatched with Drops Charisma for this, so that is probably, it will work. And you need your 5.5mm hook. This is the fabric that it gives me, but I'm a loose crocheter, so keep that in mind. Again, with this, we also will be decreasing and increasing. So you might want a stitch marker to go with that, to make sure that you know where to decrease or increase. Because with crochet, the stitch marker does not go on the hook. You do need one that has a clasp so it can open. As long as it opens, you're gonna be fine. But for crochet, you need a stitch marker that can open so you can put it in your stitches in the scarf instead of on your needle or hook. There are no needle stoppers for crochet, but it might be helpful to have a stitch marker extra that when you're stopping your project, you put a stitch marker in that stitch, and then your crochet project can't unravel. If your cat goes running with it, or you put it in a bag, or whatever happens. I am very excited about this. I will making the crochet project, so I hope you enjoy the projects as well. If you want to gauge swatch just to practice, I don't think it's really necessary for a scarf, but it is a good way to practice if you want to get into garment making later on. And this crochet pattern, because that's the one I made a swatch for, so that is the easiest to show you, is 6 stitches and 4 rows is 2 inch. 2 inch is a bit weird of a measurement. Usually we use 4 inch or 10 centimeters. And the bigger the swatch, the more you see how your fabric works. What can happen is that some yarns, depending on the yarn you choose, work differently. Wool, like the Drops Charisma for instance, will bloom up. It will fill out nicely. So whereas my swatch now has a bit of gaps in it, that might change when I wet block it. I haven't been able to do that yet. So you need 6 stitches and 4 rows for 2 inch. I usually do a 10 inch swatch or 10 centimeters. So I have chosen to do 20 stitches. And I've done 6 rows because then I was done with it. But I should have done 2 more. It's gonna be fine. Like for a scarf it doesn't matter, and I wanted to show you. But if you want to do it properly, do 4 rows. Because the edges will be a bit different, so you measure in the middle. So if you have it like this, what you do is you're gonna block it. You can steam block it, but assuming that most of you do not have a steamer at home, you wet block it. If you do have a steamer, steam this. That's it. Steam it. I would not pin it beforehand, just steam it. And then when it's dry, you're gonna measure. The same is with wet blocking, which means you wet this. Usually you wash it with a tiny bit of wool wash. If you do not have wool wash, don't worry about it, just wet it. Make sure this swatch is wet. Then fold it up, squeeze all the water out. It is very important to squeeze the water out, but you do not want to rub it as much or as little as possible, because it is, if you use wool, the rubbing can cause friction and it can cause more felting. If you squeeze out the water, you're gonna lay this on the towel, then roll up the towel with this in it, and then you're gonna stand on the towel. That will release most of its water, and then you will have a wet kind of fabric. You lay that flat to dry. And once it is flat to dry, what you're gonna measure is 10 centimeters wide. That's why you make more than 10 centimeters. But you can also, measure 5 centimeters or 2 inches and then see how much you got. For this pattern, you got the gauge for 2 inches, so you don't have to do the math. Otherwise, you have to do it 2 times what you measured. So you measure the width. In this case, it should be 6 stitches in 2 inches or 5 centimeters. And then you measure the rows in the same amount. So if you chose 2 inches this way, you're gonna measure 2 inches this way. And you're gonna count how many rows. For double crochet, you can really see it. Well, this, 1 row. This, another row. This is row 3. Row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7. I did 7 rows, apparently. Could have done 1 more. So yeah. If your gauge... Oh, now I need to think about it. Because it's confusing in the start, guys. And that's okay. So if you hit those six stitches in 2 inches, you're perfect. Go ahead, cast on. If you notice that you have more stitches, like 8 or 9 or maybe just 7, that means that you are crocheting tighter. And you need to make your stitches bigger, which you can use by going up a hook size or a needle size. It works the same for knitting and crocheting. So if you have too many stitches, you go up on your hook or your needle. On the other side, let's say you only have 4 stitches. You go down on your hook or your needle size because your stitches are too big and you need to make them tighter. That is how you gauge swatch, but you always measure after blocking it, when it's completely dry again. That obviously is sooner when you steam block it than when you wet block it. But I usually choose the method that I intend to wash my garment in. So if I would do it for a sweater, I will wash my sweater in water with wool wash. So that's how I block the swatch. To make sure that however I'm treating it will affect the swatch the same as the sweater. It is never going to be the same, because the more fabric, the more it works. But at least this gives you an idea of how you like it. So if you want to try that for this project, you can, and I am absolutely here to help you. But I don't think it's necessary for a scarf yet. Sunday the 23rd of November, I will go live and you can ask me all questions about your project. We can start the project together if you would like to. But I will be live at 7 p.m. CET. And I would prefer to have the live show for the books on the 21st of December. So I will check in the Discord if that is okay, but that is probably what's going to happen. And that will also be at 7 p.m. CET time. If you have questions before the live, please feel free to do them in the Discord, as well as after the live show. You can still ask questions about your project in the Discord. That's where we're for. And you can expect a new video for the Stitch Witches and which project we will be tackling in the next year, somewhere in December. Hopefully halfway December. That is the plan, and I'm sorry this took so long. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please like, subscribe if you want to see more chaos from me and do not want to miss out on the live shows for this audiobook club. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!